What happens when Blake lively sits across from Sunny Hostin on live television, and the conversation takes a turn nobody at the table expected? Make sure to subscribe to the Star Talks, and like and comment for more talk show coverage. The cameras are already rolling. The audience is clapping, that warm, familiar energy you get when a big name walks out. Blake walks onto the set of The View smiling, waving, giving hugs around the table. She looks relaxed, polished, confident. Sunny smiles too, but it's that measured smile she uses when she knows she's about to ask something serious. Whoopi kicks it off casually. "Blake, it's always good to see you. You look amazing." Blake laughs. "That's because I slept for once. I have 4 kids. When I sleep, it's a national holiday." Audience laughs. Light, easy energy. Joy jumps in. "Is your husband behaving?" Blake smirks. "He tries. That's the best I can say." More laughter. Everything feels normal. Comfortable. Just another celebrity interview. Then Sunny leans forward slightly. Not aggressive. Just focused. "Blake, I want to ask you something a little deeper," Sunny says. "You've been very vocal lately about media narratives and how women in Hollywood are portrayed. But some critics have said that when certain issues affect other women, particularly women of color, you've been quieter. How do you respond to that?" The audience shifts. It's subtle, but you can feel it. A few murmurs. Blake's smile tightens just slightly. "Well," Blake says carefully, "I try to be thoughtful before I speak on issues that don't directly involve my lived experience. I don't think it's always helpful for me to center myself in conversations that aren't about me." Sunny nods, but she doesn't let it go. "But do you think silence can sometimes feel like indifference?" That's when the air changes. Blake keeps her composure. "I don't see it as silence. I see it as listening." Sunny. "But listening publicly matters too." Joy shifts in her chair. "Okay, we're getting serious." Audience chuckles nervously. Blake takes a breath. "I completely agree that public support matters. But I also think performative support is dangerous. Posting something on social media doesn't automatically mean you're doing real work behind the scenes." Sunny responds quickly. "But the public doesn't see behind the scenes, Blake. What they see is what you put out there." Blake's tone firms up, not sharp but direct. "So you're suggesting that if it's not visible, it doesn't count?" Sunny. "I'm suggesting that visibility is part of responsibility when you have a platform." There's a small pause. You can hear someone in the audience say, "Oh," under their breath. Whoopi steps in lightly. "All right, let's breathe for a second." But Blake isn't backing down. "I'm very aware of the platform I have," she says. "But I also don't think it's fair to measure someone's integrity by their Instagram feed." The audience claps at that. A few louder cheers. Sunny keeps her voice calm. "No one's measuring integrity. I'm asking about accountability." Blake tilts her head slightly. "Accountability to who?" Sunny answers immediately. "To the communities who feel overlooked." The temperature rises just a little more. Alyssa jumps in, trying to smooth things over. "I think what Sunny's asking is about perception versus intention." Blake nods slowly. "And I think perception can be shaped unfairly." Sunny looks straight at her. Or accurately. There it is. The first real spark. The audience goes quiet now. Not awkward, attentive. Blake leans back slightly. "Are you saying I've been unfair?" Sunny doesn't hesitate. "I'm saying that when high-profile celebrities choose when to speak and when not to, it sends a message." Blake's voice drops half a tone. "And what message do you think I've sent?" Sunny. "That some fights are worth your voice and some aren't." You can feel the collective inhale from the crowd. Blake pauses. "This isn't defensive anymore. It's personal." "That's not true," she says, steady but firm. "I don't rank human rights issues." Sunny. "Then why does it appear that way?" Joy softly mutters, "Okay." Blake responds, "Because sometimes I choose to amplify voices instead of being the voice." Sunny. "Amplifying quietly doesn't always move the needle." Blake's eyebrows lift slightly. "So what would satisfy you? A statement every week? A checklist?" Sunny stays composed. Authentic consistency. The audience claps again, some for Sunny, some for Blake. It's split. Whoopi tries to inject humor. "Ladies, it's 11 a.m. But Blake isn't laughing. "I think it's interesting," Blake says carefully, "that we demand emotional labor from women in very specific ways. If I don't present activism the way someone expects, suddenly it's inadequate." Sunny replies, "And I think it's interesting that when people raise those concerns, it's framed as an attack." There's another ripple through the audience. Blake's smile is gone now. Not angry. Just serious. I don't feel attacked, she says. But I do feel judged. Sunny. Public life comes with public judgment. Blake nods slowly. True. But that doesn't make every judgment fair. The tension is real now. Not explosive. But sharp. You can see Joy looking between them like she's watching a tennis match. Alyssa is biting her lip. Whoopi folds her hands, observing. Sunny leans forward one more time. Let me ask it plainly. Do you think you've done enough? The audience reacts instantly, louder murmurs. Blake doesn't answer right away. She looks at Sunny, then at the audience. I don't think anyone has done enough, she finally says. Including me. But I won't accept the idea that my value is measured by how loud I am. Sunny responds. Volume isn't the issue. Presence is. And that's where it lands, unresolved, hanging in the air as the segment clock ticks down and Whoopi glances toward the producer off camera. Because this conversation? It's just getting started. The applause from the last exchange fades, but the energy doesn't. You can feel it sitting at the table. Not explosive, but tight. The kind of tension daytime television doesn't always prepare for. Whoopi clears her throat. All right, we're having a real conversation. That's what we do here. Sunny nods slightly, but her focus hasn't shifted from Blake. Blake adjusts in her chair. She's still composed, but she's no longer in press tour mode. This is different now. Sunny continues, measured but firm. Blake, I want to clarify something. This isn't about attacking you. It's about influence. When someone with your reach speaks, or doesn't, it has ripple effects. Blake answers immediately. I understand that, but I think sometimes people underestimate how complicated that decision is. Joy jumps in. Complicated how? You either tweet or you don't. Audience laughs softly, easing the tension for a split second. Blake smiles politely at Joy. It's not just tweeting. It's aligning yourself publicly with issues that require depth, understanding, long-term commitment. I don't believe in jumping into conversations just because the internet is loud. Sunny nods once. But the internet being loud often reflects real pain. Blake, absolutely. But reacting in real time isn't always responsible either. There's a small wave of applause from part of the audience. Sunny responds quickly. But waiting too long can feel like avoidance. Blake leans forward now. Avoidance implies fear. I'm not afraid of speaking up. Sunny doesn't blink. Then why do people perceive hesitation? Alyssa raises her hand slightly, trying to mediate. I think what's happening here is we're blending two things, intention and impact. Sunny nods. Impact is what communities feel. Blake turns toward Sunny directly. But you're assuming those communities haven't felt my support. Sunny, publicly? Blake pauses. Not always publicly, no. Sunny, and that's the point. The audience reacts again, a louder murmur this time. Blake's voice firms up. So is activism only valid if it's visible? Sunny responds calmly. Visibility builds solidarity. Blake, or it builds optics. That word lands heavily. Joy leans back. Oof. Sunny's tone tightens just slightly. Optics matter when people are fighting to be seen. Blake shakes her head gently. I think it's dangerous to suggest that if someone isn't posting, they don't care. Sunny, I'm not saying you don't care. I'm saying silence can unintentionally signal distance. Blake's response comes quicker now. But you're equating quiet with silence. There's a difference. Sunny, explain the difference. Blake takes a breath. Quiet is listening, learning, supporting financially, supporting privately. Silence is indifference. Those are not the same. A section of the audience claps. Sunny nods slowly. But if people don't see it, how do they know it's happening? Blake's eyes narrow slightly, not in anger, but in focus. Do I owe proof? That question hangs. Whoopi shifts forward. Okay, that's interesting. Sunny answers. When you benefit from public adoration, yes, there's an argument that you owe transparency. Blake tilts her head. Transparency or performance? Sunny, transparency. Blake, because sometimes those lines blur. There's a pause. The kind that makes producers glance at each other off camera. Joy breaks it. I just want to say, I think people forget celebrities are humans. Sunny nods. Of course they are. But they're also influential. Blake looks at Sunny again. And I take that seriously. But I don't believe in responding to every headline or trending hashtag. That doesn't create change. Sunny replies, sometimes it creates awareness. Blake, awareness without action can become noise. Sunny, But awareness is often the first step to action. The audience is visibly divided now. You can hear scattered clapping after almost every line. Half for Blake, half for Sunny. Alyssa jumps in again. Can I ask something practical? Blake, if there's a moment where fans feel you're absent from an issue that affects marginalized communities, would you consider being more visible? Blake doesn't hesitate. If I feel informed enough to contribute meaningfully, yes. Sunny immediately follows. And who determines when you're informed enough? Blake's jaw tightens just slightly. I do. Sunny nods. That's a lot of power. Blake, it's my voice. Sunny. And it reaches millions. Blake's tone sharpens for the first time. So does yours. The audience reacts loudly to that one. A mix of applause and audible wow. Sunny doesn't smile. And I use mine. Blake responds quickly. So do I. Sunny, differently. Blake, yes. Differently doesn't mean incorrectly. That line gets one of the loudest applause breaks yet. Whoopi finally raises her hand. All right, let's pause for a second. But Sunny isn't finished. Blake, let me ask you this, she says. Do you think celebrities sometimes hide behind the idea of private support because it shields them from backlash? The question lands hard. Blake sits very still. No. I think some celebrities avoid speaking because when they do, they're criticized no matter what. Sunny, criticism comes with visibility. Blake, so does misrepresentation. Sunny, that's part of public life. Blake, it doesn't mean it's healthy. There's a brief silence. Joy looks at Whoopi. This is not a normal Tuesday. The audience laughs nervously. Sunny softens her tone slightly. I'm not questioning your heart. I'm questioning the broader culture of selective advocacy. Blake nods slowly. And I agree that selective advocacy is a problem. Sunny, then how do we fix it? Blake answers more quietly now. By having conversations like this. Not by assuming motives. Sunny studies her for a moment. Fair. But she adds, intent doesn't erase impact. Blake responds immediately. Impact doesn't define intent. Another ripple through the audience. Alyssa leans forward. Can we agree that both of those statements can be true? Sunny gives a small nod. Blake nods too, but neither looks fully satisfied. Whoopi glances at the clock. We're going to have to take a break soon. The tension hasn't exploded. No one is yelling. But it's intense. Controlled. Real. Blake folds her hands together. I respect what you're saying, Sunny. I just don't agree with the framing. Sunny responds evenly. And I respect you being here and answering. Blake, I'm not afraid of hard questions. Sunny, good. There's a half smile between them, but it's cautious. Whoopi finally says, all right, we're going to step away for a moment. When we come back, we'll continue this conversation. The audience applauds, not just polite applause, but energized, buzzing applause. People are whispering to each other as the cameras pull back. As they cut to commercial, you can see Blake lean slightly towards Sunny and say something off mic. Sunny nods. Neither looks angry, but neither looks completely at ease either. And as the show fades to break, one thing is clear. This conversation is far from over. The show comes back from commercial, and you can feel it immediately. The audience isn't just clapping out of habit. They're buzzing. People are leaning forward in their seats. The energy hasn't cooled off at all. Whoopi looks down the table. All right, we're back. And clearly this conversation struck a nerve. Light laughter from the audience, but it's tense laughter. Blake sits upright, hands folded on the table now. She's calm, but there's a seriousness in her expression that wasn't there at the start of the show. Sunny looks composed too, but you can tell she's not backing off her position. Whoopi continues. I want to make sure we're being clear. This isn't about canceling anybody. It's about conversation. Sunny nods. Exactly. Blake nods as well. And I appreciate that. Sunny turns slightly toward Blake again. I want to ask something that might clarify this. When people from marginalized communities say they feel unsupported by certain public figures, do you feel any responsibility to address that publicly? Blake takes a second before answering. I feel a responsibility to listen. I feel a responsibility to reflect. But I don't always feel a responsibility to respond immediately in a public forum. Sunny presses gently. Even if the hurt is public? Blake, yes. Because reacting too quickly can make it about me instead of about them. The audience murmurs, some nodding, some whispering. Sunny's voice stays steady. But sometimes silence shifts the focus anyway. It leaves room for speculation. Blake, And sometimes speaking too quickly creates more harm. Joy jumps in. Can I just say something? This is the problem with social media. It's like everybody expects instant statements like it's a customer service desk. The audience laughs louder this time. Sunny gives Joy a small smile but stays focused. But Joy, we can't ignore that representation and visibility matter, especially when we're talking about real systemic issues. Blake leans in slightly. I agree with that completely. Sunny looks at her. Then what would you say to someone watching right now who feels like you've been absent when it mattered? That question lands differently. It's direct. It's personal. Blake looks out toward the audience for a moment before answering. I would say I'm sorry if my approach has felt distant, she says carefully. That was never my intention. There's a soft ah from somewhere in the audience. She continues, but I would also say that I don't believe activism is one size fits all. I support causes in ways that align with my values and my understanding. That doesn't always look loud. Sunny listens closely. But do you understand why loud can feel necessary to people who aren't being heard? Blake nods. Yes, I do. Sunny, then is there room for growth there? Blake doesn't dodge it. There's always room for growth. That line gets applause. Sunny softens slightly. That's all I'm really asking for. A recognition that visibility isn't just performance. It can be protection. Blake absorbs that. That's fair. But then she adds, however, I do think there's a double standard sometimes. Women are expected to carry the emotional weight of every issue. And if we don't do it perfectly, we're criticized. The audience reacts again, strong applause this time. Sunny nods slowly. There is truth in that. Women do carry a disproportionate burden. Blake continues. And especially in Hollywood, women are expected to be activists, mothers, entrepreneurs, role models, all at once. It's exhausting. Joy claps lightly on the table. Amen. Sunny responds thoughtfully. But some would argue that privilege comes with responsibility. Blake answers immediately. And I accept responsibility. What I push back on is the idea that responsibility only looks one way. The audience splits again, applause and murmurs overlapping. Alyssa steps in carefully. It sounds like both of you are saying the same thing from different angles. Sunny is emphasizing visibility. Blake is emphasizing authenticity. Sunny nods. Yes. Blake nods too. That's accurate. Whoopi leans back. So maybe the real question is, how do you balance those two? There's a brief pause. Blake answers first. By being intentional. By not reacting out of fear of backlash. By doing the work before making the statement. Sunny follows. And by understanding that sometimes the statement itself can empower people. Blake, true. Sunny, especially when silence has historically been used to dismiss people. That line makes the audience go quiet again. Blake takes a breath. I don't ever want to contribute to dismissal. Sunny looks at her carefully. Then maybe being a little louder sometimes wouldn't hurt. The audience reacts with a mix of laughter and applause. Blake smiles, genuinely this time. Maybe. But then she adds, I just don't want to be pressured into speaking in a way that feels inauthentic. Sunny replies, and I don't want communities to feel invisible. There it is again, two truths sitting next to each other. Joy shakes her head lightly. This is why I don't have social media. The audience laughs again, easing the tension. Whoopi smiles slightly. I think what people are seeing right now is what real disagreement looks like. Nobody's yelling. Nobody's storming off. Sunny nods. We can disagree respectfully. Blake agrees. Absolutely. But the emotional weight is still there. Sunny looks at Blake once more. I want to say this clearly. My questions aren't personal attacks. They're reflections of conversations happening outside this studio. Blake answers calmly. And I don't take them as attacks. I just think nuance often gets lost. Sunny, that's fair. Blake, and I'm open to learning. The audience applauds again, louder this time. But then Sunny adds one more thought. I do think, though, that when people ask for public solidarity, it's often because private solidarity hasn't historically been enough. That lands heavily. Blake doesn't answer right away. She nods slowly. I hear that, she says quietly. For a moment, there's no interruption. No quick comeback. Just a real pause. The kind that doesn't happen often on daytime television. Whoopi finally looks toward the camera. This is why we have this table. These conversations matter. The applause rises again. But even as the segment starts to wind down, you can tell this debate isn't neatly resolved. There's respect, yes. There's acknowledgement, yes. But there's still a philosophical divide. And everyone in the studio knows it. Because this wasn't just small talk. It was a real clash of perspective, live, unfiltered, and very public. And the audience? They're still processing every word. The final segment of the show opens with a different kind of energy. Not tense exactly, but reflective. The applause rolls in, and you can tell the audience is still thinking about what just happened. Whoopi looks down the table. Before we wrap, I just want to say something. Conversations like this are messy. They're layered. But they're important. The audience claps. Blake nods. Sunny nods too. Sunny speaks first this time. I want to be very clear. My goal is never to single anyone out unfairly. My questions come from real conversations happening in communities that feel unheard. Blake responds calmly. And I respect that. I really do. She turns slightly towards Sunny. I also think it's important to remember that growth sometimes happens privately before it shows up publicly. Sunny listens carefully. That's fair. Blake continues. And I'm not above criticism. I just think it's healthier when we assume good intent first. There's applause, strong and supportive. Sunny answers thoughtfully. Intent matters, but so does effect. And I think what viewers saw today is two women who care deeply about how they use their voices. The audience reacts positively to that. Joy chimes in, half joking but sincere. And nobody flipped a table, which is always good for daytime television. Laughter breaks the heaviness. Alyssa adds, I actually think this is what people want, not perfect agreement, but honest disagreement. Whoopi nods. Exactly. Blake looks toward the audience. If anyone watching felt disappointed in me before today, I hope this conversation at least shows I'm willing to sit in discomfort. That line earns a noticeable wave of applause. Sunny responds, and I appreciate you staying in the conversation. There's eye contact. Not confrontational now, just steady. As the show moves toward closing, you can feel the shift from confrontation to reflection. Whoopi turns to the camera. This is what happens when strong opinions meet strong personalities. And we're grateful to our guest for engaging. The applause swells as the segment officially wraps. But what happened after the cameras stopped rolling is just as interesting. As the credits begin, you can see Blake and Sunny lean toward each other again, talking off mic. No raised voices. No dramatic gestures. Just quiet conversation. Joy cracks another joke that makes both of them smile. The audience members stand as the show ends, many still talking among themselves. Some are clearly on Blake's side, applauding her stance about authenticity and private action. Others are nodding in support of Sunny's emphasis on visibility and accountability. And then social media lights up almost instantly. Clips from The View start circulating within minutes. Hashtags trend. Some viewers praise Sunny for holding a celebrity accountable. Others defend Blake, arguing that activism doesn't have to be performative to be meaningful. Short clips of the moment where Blake said, "Do I owe proof?" begin to circulate widely. Comment sections fill up with debates, some thoughtful, some heated. Fans of Blake lively post supportive messages about her calm demeanor under pressure. Supporters of Sunny Hostin highlight her consistency in asking difficult questions, even when the guest is popular. By the afternoon, entertainment blogs are already running headlines about the tense exchange. Some describe it as a respectful debate. Others call it a clash. But almost everyone agrees it was real. No shouting. No walk-offs. No theatrics. Just two strong perspectives colliding on live television. And that's what makes it resonate. Behind the scenes, according to staff members, there was no lingering hostility. Production sources say Blake thanked the panel before leaving. Sunny reportedly told producers she appreciated the openness of the conversation. The takeaway? Neither woman won. Neither lost. What viewers witnessed was something more nuanced. A debate about how public figures navigate responsibility in a hypervisible world. And that's why people can't stop talking about it. Because it wasn't scripted. It wasn't polished. It wasn't neatly resolved. It was layered. And those kinds of moments stick. Now we want to hear from you. Do you think public figures owe visible activism to their audiences? Or is private action enough? Was Sunny right to press the issue? Or was Blake right to push back on expectations? Share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to the Star Talks for more real talk show stories.